Yeah, oh, you should.
He's so
It
honored.
probably,
Oh,
well.
someone texted me this week. I was like, what? Yeah, heart attack. Oh my God. Laugh right now.
Were they joking?
No, it was someone else.
Yeah, I hadn't driven it much, but
Well, you probably need to
I'll
drive.
get it out maybe tomorrow. I gotta take the dog down to the corners down in Salisbury.
Just call me. If you don't, call me Saturday.
And let's get out and ride a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll be at the gym Saturday morning. Let me know you're coming. I'll try to remember to put that thing in my car or whatever I'm driving. If I'm in a truck, I'll probably have it. I'll try to keep it in there.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'll try to get with you more afternoon.
Yeah, just call me.
Oh, gotta go get a battery from Trent down. Battery's dead, and I've been milking it for a year, recharging and stuff.
Man, y'all don't always get you a battery. 'Cause that's, when you got one that's not doing right, it's bad on the alternator. You end up burning your alternator up.
Yeah. It was just, I knew when I bought the car, the guy was like, the battery keeps running down. When I got home, I got a car and I looked back and the dumb light was still on. And I messed with it, and I figured they straight wired the dumb light.
Really?
That's why the damn battery kept running down on the guy.
Yeah.
I didn't drive a night, so I didn't have the dumb light.
Straight wire to dome light.
Yeah. I just unhooked the dumb light. Battery was already dead.
We don't have a few people.
I tell you, I had Beth out there spraying the starter fluid in the carburetor, and that thing started spitting. It's on fire! It's on fire! And she threw that can down.
You better watch out with her.
I told her, I said, you just keep spraying stuff.
I was going to an Amway convention back. This was way back. I guess back in the, I don't know, early '80s. I mean, well, late '80s probably. And I was helping my brother crank one, and I was spraying it. And I told him, don't crank it while I'm spraying it. He cranked it, and that thing backfired, and it burnt the hair off my arm, all the way up my arm, burnt my face, and burnt half my mustache off. You wouldn't think it'd do that, but
I wouldn't think so.
it did.
That's what I told her. Just keep giving it to it because it's just got to get that fuel pump started. Get that fuel to the line.
Yeah. What you got? Has it got an electric fuel pump on it, or has it got a manual fuel pump?
I would say it's a manual.
Yeah. I mean, if it's got a manual on it, you're okay pumping it. But if it's got electric and you're pumping it, you're just gonna flood it. But I think those got manuals on them. But I don't remember. I ain't messed with one so long. Sure have. Hey, Mark.
I haven't seen him forever. I'm good. I know him forever.
That's all me. Well, T got this thing looking good. Hey, Joe. Hey, buddy. $50,000 or more. Didn't make that much.
It's hard to make that job. I think it's easier to make the job day or run through more grades. I love the kids. Like I work in operations. I really like the I can do that. I like my hands. They're old enough. We get to read.
What's up, Mr. Jones? You all right?
Still kicking.
Deanna Reagan came in and said, oh, Jimmy said, somebody texted me over the weekend and said you died. And apparently it was a different Jimmy Landis. And I said, let's be honest, Deanna, you were more worried about us putting you back on council.
Sure.
Y'all all set?
Ready when you are.
Oh, so we're good.
Okay.
Got it all worked out.
Okay.
She's like, I just got too much going on.
Good evening, folks, and Happy New Year. Mayor Crawford can't be with us tonight. He's a little under the weather, so please send him your good vibes and thoughts. My name is Derek. Today is January the 5th, 7 p.m. This is the Town of Stokesdale special called meeting to discuss town park project improvements. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, if I may ask Mr. Jones if he could lead us in a prayer.
Bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for all our many freedoms, and opportunity to celebrate Christmas and see family, and hopefully everyone has returned safely from their Christmas vacations and New Year holidays. I'd like to take time to thank you, Lord, for every family, for every business, and every individual citizen in Stokesdale. You know their needs, and may they be met. And I ask that you guide us and lead us in spending these funds, and that we would be good stewards of the monies entrusted to us by the citizens of Stokesdale. You will give us counsel, wisdom, and it allow us to proceed and do your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. First item on the agenda is to review and adopt the agenda. I'll start it out with one change. I'd like to strike the closed session part of the agenda from the meeting. Are there any objections? We will make that change. Are there any additional changes to the agenda, which really should be strikes? Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with that one change.
I'll second.
Okay, Jim?
Aye.
Am I? Jimmy?
Aye.
And Tim?
Aye.
All right. Okay, so tonight is a unique meeting. I think we're going to hear a lot of exciting things. In fact, I know we are. Just want to kind of lay out the format of how tonight's meeting will be. We'll start out by having Mr. T. Stevenson, the chairman of the Town Park Improvement Committee. He's going to share a PowerPoint presentation with us. An important part of the meeting is that we receive public. We want to receive public comments, feedback, questions, et cetera. So if I may ask anybody that does have those comments or questions to please kind of keep a running tally of those. And as a courtesy to T, we'll wait till the end of his presentation to ask questions. If y'all would like to have any paper or pens to jot down questions so you don't forget them as they come up, we have those back by the piano on the black table back there. So that's really that. We'll get to the next item on the agenda. This is citizens' comments. The town of Stokesdale has citizens' comments not only at our regularly scheduled town council meetings, we also have them in special called meetings. So you are free to speak for 3 minutes on any subject matter now, or we also have this at the end of the agenda. In addition, because this is a public forum format, as we get into the question and answer phase after T's presentation, that'll be more of an open discussion, not necessarily limit the 3-minute limit rule. We want to give everybody the opportunity to speak and say and ask as much as you would like to ask. So with that, we'll go ahead and segue into public comments, and I do have 3 names I'd like to call, and then if anybody would like to speak after that, please do so. We'd like to start out with Miss Eileen Theory.
Hi.
I heard that.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
I just want to say I'm very excited to see the presentation. And coincidentally, Patty Stokes did publish some of the changes that you're contemplating, and they all sound very good. So I want to thank everybody for their work. I know that you just didn't sit down and draw a picture. I know a lot of work went into it. So I want to thank you and thank Mr. Stevenson here too.
Thank you, Ms. Theory. Next, we have Ms. Vicki White Lawrence.
I mainly have to put my name in because I know I'll have questions.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. And lastly, we have Ms. Mary Ellen Smith.
Same thing, I was gonna speak after.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Would anybody else like to speak during the public comment part of this? With that, we'll move into the presentation, and I'd like to introduce Mr. T. Stevenson. He is the chairman of our Town's Park Improvement Committee. Welcome, T, and thank you for being here, and thank you for everything you've done.
Well, thank you, Mr. Foy. I do appreciate that. And again, my name is T. Stevenson. I live at 7900 Carroll Way in Stokesdale. I'm the chairperson of the Park Improvement Committee. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I do appreciate the group that has turned out to, I'm sure it's to hear me, right? No, probably not.
You better believe it is.
At any rate, we've got Robbie here, and Robbie's got the PowerPoint presentation keyed up for us. And just, if I could focus, it's a little bit clearer on the TV, so if you want to shift your chairs a little bit, maybe you could see it even a little bit more clear there. But we'll just kind of page through this, if you will, and I'm ready, Robbie, whenever you are.
I'm gonna get the camera
Okay.
so that everybody at home can see the.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes,
before
sir.
you get started, close that door, or
Thank
it
you,
may get noisy, people going and coming. Thank you.
Great. We good? All righty, thank you very much. Okay, just real quickly, by way of introduction, wanted to just kind of set the premise for which this committee was developed and also what we're working with and where some of these funds came from. So the town of Stokesdale received $725,475 in funds from the America Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And for those of you that are not familiar with that act, it's $1.9 trillion that the federal government allocated towards recovery from the COVID-19 virus and those kind of things. One half of those funds were allocated to be used, which is $362,737.50, were included in the town of Stokesdale's fiscal year 2022 budget. That budget goes, it actually expires June 30th of 2023. In addition to the town of Stokesdale, these funds, we received a small town development grant in the amount of $50,000, and that has also been designated for park improvements during this fiscal year. Sorry. Okay, Robbie? Now, our objectives, as you can imagine, we wanted to make the best use of those funds as possible. So the committee was established to research, evaluate, and propose a plan for the allocation of these monies that would benefit the citizens of Stokesdale to the highest degree possible, while also bearing in mind the projected future cost of maintaining and servicing these facilities that we're talking about. So we wanted to make sure that we chose materials that were going to be durable, that didn't need to be replaced on a frequent basis, and didn't need a lot of maintenance and upkeep. Using the results of a park survey from February of 2020, the committee chose 4 major topics, or projects rather, which will be presented tonight, recognizing that the population of our town and the desires of our citizens may have changed since the original survey back in February of 2020. We wanted to have this meeting so that each of you could have an opportunity to voice your opinion and to review our results of what we have proposed so far in the project that is thus far underway. Thank you again for attending. I'm glad to see everyone here. Okay, As we said, the public survey was conducted in February of 2020. The survey requested, well, actually posed a number of questions with varying degrees of answering. 1 was strongly disagree, 5 was strongly agree. And what we did was we developed a scale here, weighted averages, where an average of 3 was neutral. Anything greater than 3 was favorable, and anything less than 3 was unfavorable. There were a total of 594 responses received. Not all of the respondents offered opinions on all the questions, but I did take a note of some of the demographics from those respondents. 73.76% of those had lived in Stokesdale for 5 years or more. 96%, a little over 96%, owned their home, and 85.21% of the respondents had a household income of $50,000 or more. Just by way of, we've had questions in the past about how many people responded to those surveys and stuff. My understanding is that we mailed out some 1,500 surveys, and, you know, in the world of surveys, getting almost a little over a third of those back is pretty incredible. It's
Yeah.
usually in the 20% range in my experience. Okay, as part 1 of that survey was dealing with park development, these are basically 4 statements that were requested to get feedback. So the first statement is the park should be kept in its natural state with emphasis on passive outdoor recreational activities. This received a weighted average of 3.8, which again is in the favorable range. The second question went a little bit further. It said the park should include mostly active outdoor activities, which would include running trails, playgrounds, and ball fields. That was a little less at a 3.3. Now, the third question was kind of a combination of those. And it said the park should include a combination of passive and active outdoor activities, and that received a very good rating of 4.3. Now, the fourth question was the park should be connected to other parts of the community by trail sidewalk systems, and that again was a 3.8 favorable rating. Under part 2, financing. Now, this is pretty important stuff here because this goes in a lot to our thought process in the background from which we're working. So, Robbie, if you could zoom in on that chart a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I've highlighted the 4 that were actually very favorable. So the first one that was highlighted is using funds from the existing general fund balance. That actually is 3.9, so that was a very favorable rating. The second one is seeking state and federal grant funds. That received a 4.5 rating, so bear in mind, out of a total of 5, it got a 4.5. I'm going to skip down to number 5 there, seeking private and corporate donations. That received a weighted average of 4.0. And number 7 was a combination of the above with the goal of avoiding a property tax. And again, that's the topic of conversation in a lot of projects that we have here in town. And that is a very high priority, is to avoid having a property tax. As you can see, that's a 4.0 weighted average. Okay, again, using the survey, we developed the 4 projects that we mentioned here. Nature trails, playground equipment, basketball courts, and an amphitheater. You can see there, because of the highlights, that there's a couple in between there, and that's going to be benches, a farmer's market, and picnic shelters. And quite honestly, in the notes there, I've said that, well, benches will be incorporated into the overall plans for each one of these facilities and the sites that we're proposing, as will, well, the farmer's market. We actually tried that here on site a few years ago. We actually now, this past summer, had a farmer's market in downtown Stokesdale. and that received some positive traffic and was a pretty good event. So we didn't really want to try to duplicate that or move it away from the downtown area. And then, of course, the picnic shelters, we have 2 on site at the current time, and they seem to be utilized pretty well, but not an overwhelming request for additional use. So I think it's adequate to fit our needs at this time. With regard to nature trails, we wanted to establish nature trails through the forested areas surrounding Stokesdale Town Park, allowing for hiking, walking, exercising on non-paved surfaces. So this is not to be confused with the existing trail that we have, which is a paved surface. And every day that I come out here, there's somebody walking on that trail or running, and it is getting pretty good use. But the request has been for nature trails that could get off of that beaten path, if you will. The possibility of hosting scholastic cross-country meets for area schools. Being a former track athlete, that was kind of a good idea for us. And then Deanna, of course, is involved in some of the school programs, and she confirmed that we do not currently have any facilities in area schools that would allow for this competition. So we could probably sponsor some of those here on site. Okay. We also allow for the possibility of adding exercise stations throughout the system of trails, allowing for more invigorating exercise experience. You're probably familiar, if you ever go over to Summerfield, to their community park, they do have some exercise apparatus along the trail that they have there. Chin-up bars, sit-up apparatus, that kind of thing, where you can walk or run along the trail and then stop and do a little bit of more physical exercise. That's kind of what this is speaking to. We've got an estimated cost of actually clearing the trails, laying the trails out and clearing the trails of about $60,000 at this point. With regard to playground equipment, we met with 2 recreation consultants. We offered our suggestions for expanding the current playground and adding equipment focusing on children ages 5 to 12 to complement the current equipment that focuses on younger children. The equipment that's there is actually geared towards the 2 to 5-year-old population. Apparatus will focus on upper body strength and include climbing, agility, balance, and coordination. I would add also that our thoughts also include apparatus that would be mobility challenged individuals would have access to that. By that I mean any type of handicaps or that kind of thing. Okay. Received a preliminary site plan and pricing for a suggested active structure and themed play components, and the estimated cost here is $95,000. Okay. Now, the proposed location of this would be an extension to the existing playground that we currently have on site, which is just out adjacent to the volleyball courts there in Town Park. The new play area will be 60 feet by 60 feet and would be at the south end of the park, of the existing park there. And I think hopefully everybody can see the outline there in blue. That is the proposed section there. Okay. All right, and for basketball courts, we actually have spoken to and have received preliminary information with the recommendation to use a modular court, which is made of polypropylene laid on top of concrete rather than just straight concrete or asphalt. Our research indicates that this to be a much safer option, providing protection against abrasions, head injuries, and joint strain. So it's basically a rubberized or fabricated plastic court. Although it would require a greater cash outlay up front, the cost of ownership over time is much less than the standard concrete surface with the acrylic lines that would have to be repainted every 3 or 4 years. The estimated cost for this project is about $150,000. Now, we propose this basketball court to be located on the new section. As you may recall, the town of Stokesdale had the opportunity to purchase 10 acres adjacent to the existing town, and we did so back in 2020, I believe. Is that correct? Was it
I
20?
believe it was 21, sir.
21.
Thank you.
So there was 10 acres there. So this proposed location is in the corner of that new property there, but it is still very close in proximity to the existing walking trail with that. It is currently covered with trees and shrubbery on property owned by the town and is in that new phase that I mentioned. The land is relatively flat and adjacent to the current walking trail. Overall court size will be 70 by 94, and if you'll recall the previous slide, it would allow for a full court, 94-foot, what we would call regulation court, and then would have two smaller courts going cross-court, if you will. We are proposing a 10-foot galvanized chain link fence to be surrounding that to, try to maintain its integrity. And also, that would have 3 gates to allow for access, for maintenance, and then, of course, for use. Thank you, Robbie. Yeah, the amphitheater, we've actually been working on this for a pretty good while and have done some pretty good research on that. We received a 3D rendering of the amphitheater from Lori Hawkins, and she has her landscape design company. The amphitheater is to be located in the wooded area beyond the current parking lot in Stokesdale Town Park. So if you look at the parking lot this way, it's almost directly as we look west here. The rendering includes a covered stage, seating for approximately 270 persons, walkways, plants, and landscaping. It would be accessible for handicapped patrons and emergency vehicles, which is a must. And the estimated cost is $420,000, and that would be excluding the professional landscaping. Now, the next slide is an aerial video that the landscape architect provided to us. And I'd like for just about 2 minutes, so if Robbie, you could click on that, just focus your attention on that, please.
I got it. Oh,
Well, it worked this afternoon.
yeah. There we go.
Okay. Again, you can see that that is located right to the west of the existing parking lot. It does have paved walkways. It does have a paved vehicle access from the paved parking. Some of the landscaping is in that colored foliage there, and that would be an area that we think we would propose area civic clubs and organizations could take as special projects maybe on a volunteer basis to help with the town project there, rather than spending the roughly $40,000 in addition that was in the estimate that we've received. As you're probably aware, there are amphitheaters in Oak Ridge and also in Summerfield. The difference here is the proximity, number one, to the parking. If you've ever been to the Summerfield location, parking is approximately 1/4 mile from the actual amphitheater. So if you're carrying chairs or any kind of baby strollers or that kind of stuff, it's a good little hike to get from your parking area down to the amphitheater. Oak Ridge does not accommodate as many as this one would be, and does not have the seating arrangement that we're proposing. It's just a sloped area where you can lay your blanket or your lawn chairs and that kind of thing. I'm not hearing any oohing and ahhing, but we did when the committee saw it. So. But we are very pleased with the presentation that we got from the landscape architect on this. Okay, the next slide is pretty much a diagram, not working drawing, but close to working drawings that we did present to a general contractor to get a approximate cost estimate, and that's where that actually it's about $455,000 less. The landscaping would be the $420,000. And again, the location, the proposed location is at the end of the current parking lot, at the loop there, in the wooded area west of Stokesdale Town Park. And again, it would be accessible from the parking lot. Okay. We reviewed and identified an amphitheater kit. We felt like this was a more economical method of pursuing this particular project. From a cost-saving standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint, this particular structure is metal and wood. There is a structure similar to this. It's actually the same kit over in Jamestown that Mr. Foy and I went over and visited in person there. And our proposal would include this structure, and we are actually looking at maybe a little bit different color combination, but also would include probably some stone accents, stone veneer accents where you see the brick on these columns. Certainly, we feel like this is a very economical way to go. We received a preliminary pricing indication on the kit. That does not include the installation. It is recommended that we would use a contractor, certainly that is recommended by the distributor of the kit because they are familiar with the erection of this particular type of structure. With that. So what are the next steps? Well, certainly we want to entertain some questions from the floor and feel free to express your questions, comments, concerns, you know, and then we'll take that as a committee and review those recommendations, develop a set of recommendations, and then we will present recommendations to town council for vote. And certainly that will include, with their blessing, we will be releasing RFPs, which are requests for proposals or requests for quotes, and we'll get those in, and then we'll evaluate the most economic and the best bang for our buck, as Patty Stokes said in the newspaper. So with that, I would open the floor for questions. Mr. Foy? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Just thanks, Steve. Great work. So here's the part where we ask questions, right? So, if you just want to raise your hand and I'll call on you. And ideally, it would be great if you could speak into the microphone. Robbie, if you wouldn't mind bringing the microphone over. And we say that because this meeting is via YouTube, so that'll help us capture your voice. So if you just, when you have the mic, if you could please identify yourself, and that's good. Miss Vicky?
Wait there. Gotcha.
Vicki White Lawrence, 8400 West Falls Lane, here in Stokesdale. My questions are about the amphitheater. First of all, the location of it. Does that impact the current disc golf course? No. So it's back behind it? Okay. All right. And the other question is, I know with the funding for it, according to the article in the paper, we're going to be counting on council to possibly throw in money for that. Is that right?
I can address maybe the finances, and T, if you want to pile on too. But so the county, excuse me, the federal government has already distributed the $725,000 of ARPA funds, and then they're in the town's bank account. And those monies could be used for the town park or other things such as the water system. And the town has also received other grant monies totaling $4.2 million that has been allocated to the water system. So there are $725,000 available that could be used for park improvements. That would require a majority vote of council to move forward with that. In addition to that $725,000, the town has received a $50,000 grant, small town development grant, which really, the uses there are more broad, right? So, totaling those numbers together, you're at about $775,000. And T presented that in this year's, our budget this year, we budgeted roughly $402,000 for capital park improvements. Any expenditure of money for capital park improvements would require a majority vote of this council, but that $404,000 is in the budget. Now, if we were to go ahead before June 30th and encumber a greater amount than that, the budget would be required to be amended, and that also would require a majority vote of the town council.
All right, so we need to keep an eye out for that so that we can advocate for those fundings when the budget process rolls around then, if necessary, right?
I want to make sure I understand your question before I answer it. Keep an eye out for anything above the monies already allocated?
Right.
I would say so. It's possible, I think there's a possibility that the town council, if we receive, favorable quotes from potential vendors to move forward on these projects, that this year's budget could be amended and up to that amount that I stated could be put into this year's budget so we could go ahead and obligate those funds to these projects. Just speaking as one council member, it is my desire that these projects are able to be funded in full through grant monies without really going into our general fund balance. So, thank you for your question, Vicki. All right. Mary Ellen, you had...
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Smith, and I live at 8302 Barney Road in Stokesdale. And I just had two questions. The landscaping and then the installation were not included in that 402,000, am I correct? So what is how will that be funded, or what is the intention for installation and landscaping?
In terms of the amphitheater?
Yeah.
So the cost estimate we received from a general contractor did have the landscaping as designed by the landscape architect in that cost estimate, which was $455,000. The landscaping piece of that was $40,000, a significant amount of money. The committee, after committee discussion, thought it may be prudent to see if we can get town volunteers throughout the town to help us out with the landscaping in terms of cost. As far as the purchase of shrubbery and plants, I think that would be town money, but maybe a little sweat equity from our citizens and, council members would be a good thing in complementing the overall amphitheater project.
And how about the installation? Was that not included?
Yes, ma'am. That is included, and as well as the coverage structure itself. We received it from Polygon, which makes these nice covered structures. That was $57,000 of the cost. That's just the structure. However, the general contractor included the installation of the structure.
I gotcha. Okay, I understand. Yes, thank you.
So to kind of give you, all of this land where this amphitheater would be is wooded today. So there is extensive site work, environmental, things like that, requires civil engineer. All that was included in this cost estimate from the companies out of Kernersville that gave us this estimate. Excuse me for not recalling their name, but we did meet with them. And they gave us a good looking, they laid it out by category what their estimate was. So it was professionally done. And
Okay, good. And then I also I'm also here representing the Friends of Stokesdale.
Okay.
And those of you that don't know, we're a 501c nonprofit here in town that is working to, preserve Stokesdale and just make general improvements to life for our citizens. And I think we are all, as a committee, we're very excited about these recommendations, and we're looking forward to, lending our full support, maybe some sweat equity if we need to.
Great.
Speaking out of turn, maybe. And then we're looking forward to, we're planning bigger and bigger events and looking forward to maybe, being able to use some of these facilities to host our events.
Thank you for sharing that. And there's a program called a PARTIF grant through the state. And the town originally got one. Vicki, you might be able to help me out, but roughly 20-ish, years ago. And that's how, a lot of our park was developed at the time. And we could potentially apply for a grant like that. And the folks, the decision makers for a grant like that do look favorably upon civic organizations in the town, endorsing such things. So, yes, ma'am, it is. It is. And that application deadline, if I'm not mistaken, is April, with the decision normally made in the summertime. We have not applied for that this fiscal year. We did in 2020 and did not receive it. But that's another option for a source of funds, So, all right. Ms. Privet?
Sorry. Elizabeth Privet, 7154 Ellison Road in Stokesdale. I think that the landscaping around the amphitheater is beautiful and it really brings it to another level. I have attended several of the events over at Oak Ridge, and I noticed that the younger couples that have children, they are able to see the musicals and everything there, the bands and all that are playing, and be able to have their children in the playground. It appears that the one in Stokesdale is going to be fairly secluded. It's going to be away from that, so they would not be able to enjoy that if they have the kids in the children's playground area.
That's a really good point. T, would you like to respond to that?
There's actually a small playground right at the entrance of the amphitheater, and I would pull that up. But it's not currently funded. It's just a proposed.
And a challenge with that is, from my perspective, and I believe that I'm right, but I may not be, is, and to kind of piggyback off Vicki's question, that proposed playground location, and the committee did discuss this, it makes a lot of sense, right? But it kind of interferes with our disc golf course that we have out here. And the disc golf course is well used, but also it was paid for through grant money. And I believe we have a 20-year obligation to keep it as is. But, I don't play disc golf, but, my buddy Brian does, and he really likes the course. And Adam, you may play back there, but, so I wouldn't want to interfere with that. But it is a consideration we made, and your point's certainly well taken.
Could we adjust the landscaping to allow for some visibility back there? You guys are much more familiar with the diagram and what your plans are. I'm just popping questions out.
Visibility
From the playground here, or is it just going to be such a distance that it would not be feasible?
It would be very difficult to see the amphitheater from the current playground.
Okay, it's beautiful. Great job.
Thank you.
And there'll be other things that we do sooner or later, or another council will do. There'll be more money coming in sometime, and that may be something that, could be added over to the side at some other time. We are limited on our funds, now. I guess we could pull what we're doing and pull it over there. That's something we could think about. No, what we're doing is not road and stuff at this time.
And I,
But that is a good idea.
yeah, it is a good idea. Mr. President, I'll share a concern I had because I think we were kind of thinking alike there when I was initially thinking about this. But, you know, that location, kind of as we had it, would be so close to the parking lot. And I kind of worried about small children in that proximity to the parking lot, especially during, you know, events. You know, I mean, T, let's talk about it. I mean, you know,
Well, you know, that's the reason we're here.
yeah, absolutely,
It
absolutely.
is, I mean, totally.
Yeah.
Suggestions from the floor, anything that we may have overlooked, something that we may not have considered. And certainly we appreciate the input there, and certainly we will put that on the list and see if there's some way that it would be feasible to make some
Yeah.
type of, or certainly, you know, pencil it in for future additions kind of thing there. So recognizing that these 4 projects can be done one at a time or in multiples. So it's kind of a long range kind of deal, but we are working under some pretty strict guidelines with regard to encumbering the funds. They have to be, Mr. Foy, they have to be spoken for and assigned by the end of
2024?
2024.
Yeah, they have to be, the funds need to be obligated and the full expense 2026. Yeah, there's, I think I think we've allowed ourselves a nice long runway to prepare and plan for that. But yeah, it's not that there's money in our account and it can sit there for years and years and, you know, but.
And make that very clear as well. If we don't use this money, whether it be for park improvements or other town projects, we have to turn it back.
And that is
I mean,
correct.
it's like found money or a bonus at the end of the year if you're in, you know, the corporate world kind of thing. So it's, we want to use it and we want to use it to the most benefit of the largest number of people in Stokesdale that we possibly can.
And the town is required to submit quarterly reports, status reports on, you know, how the money's been spent so far. So, you know, right now, those have been 0, but in the future, of course, they won't be, so. Mr. Nadell had a question.
Yeah, I commend I'm Mark Nadell, 8211 Wendy Gale Drive in Stokesdale. I commend the council. I think it's a great idea. I am very much in favor of the improvements. My one take, and I have personal experience with an amphitheater up north, which has turned into being a very, very large, and Eileen might be able to address or recognize that, in Eisenhower Park. It is now called the Harry Chafin Theater. It started out as a small amphitheater. I was involved in the development of that, and it's turned into be a very, very real jewel of the county. My personal take is I would like to see an amphitheater done as the primary project, and if need be, cut back on some of the other projects and make this a real class project. Because my thought is, as it goes along, maybe we might want to look for, after it's built and we get ourselves all set up, a corporate sponsor who's willing to pay to have their name, Truist or whoever it is. These banks and big corporations are always looking for publicity, and that could bring a lot of revenue back into the town itself. So I hope that when we do this, I'm not in favor of doing the kit kind of version, because I think the kit version, to me, looks a little, I don't know, not as professional as the drawing that was presented up here, which looks really nice. Like, you know, Elizabeth said, everything from the landscaping to, because remember, you only get one shot at a first impression. And if we have a really class-looking amphitheater, it's going to attract more than just the community as far as presentations. And if the community can get some really nice presentations put on, whether it be, let's say, Broadway shows, you know, traveling agents and groups like that want to come and do a show at our theater because it's a really nice place, that's going to really bring the focus on our town, and people are going to say, what a great place to live in. Look at this. These guys have a real class operation. So I think that the trails are nice and the extra playground equipment is good. Maybe that's something that should be put into the long-term plan for over the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it might be, and take the chunk of the money that we have and make this amphitheater something that everyone in Guilford County and maybe even in North Carolina is going to say, this is the place you got to go to see that next concert or that next show. And hopefully we have a situation where we have a waiting list of people that want to put a production on, which ultimately can maybe bring revenue into the town, but more than anything else, making us a real shining star in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you for your input, Mark. Do you mind if I make a comment?
Please.
Good points, and I appreciate you sharing, your experience in other areas of the country and the successes they've had. What I like about the four various projects is really, there's something for anyone from age 2 to 92, as the Christmas song says. We got playground equipment, basketball courts, and amphitheaters, and I think that's important. Of course, an amphitheater can be enjoyed by all ages too. I don't want to discount that. I don't think anybody that knows me, I'm very, very excited about this amphitheater, possibility. I'd also like to speak to the kit. I hear what you're saying. Well, when I hear something, you buy a prefabricated kit, you get kind of, If I could, I'd like to email you a picture, a lot of pictures of the structures this company, Polygon, has done. I mean, we're talking really top notch. But I hear what you're saying, and thank you for sharing that. Ms. Theory.
Mark, I grew up going to Eisenhower Park, and I have to disagree with something. The population that was surrounding there was way above what we have here in Stokesdale, okay? And I don't remember that amphitheater being that wonderful. We went to a lot of the shows there. We are not East Meadow, Levittown. These are all north.
Oh, okay.
We're Stokesdale. And I think that we have to keep within the natural surroundings as much as possible. To be putting up what we had in Eisenhower Park, you might as well also try to build the Empire State Building while you're at it. And I can go on and on. This is more suitable for our town. It's a step forward. And in the future, if people want more, then they can maybe go out and do some fundraising and get it in the future. But this right now, I think, serves the purpose of the people that are living here. And that's what we're doing. We're not doing this to attract half of the world to come see everything. We're here to keep the natural appeal of the park. And an amphitheater on the scale of what was up in New York is not necessary. It really isn't. I grew up there. I went there many times. I lived in Levittown, which was a stone's throw away from Eisenhower Park. And I was just up there with my daughter visiting. And it's not as grand as it sounds. We now have camping by immigrants and things like that. So we'll just keep what we're doing and keep it to the town. I mean, if we're trying to conserve the history of this town too, I don't think we want to start putting up these gigantic things to draw people in.
Yeah.
It's to serve our purpose at this point. And if other people want to come, they're welcome. But I don't think we have to do it to make a welcoming mat. Come see what we have. As long as the people in the town are happy, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your opinion as well. It's good to hear different opinions, various opinions. The lay of the land out there is beautiful. If we do move forward with an amphitheater, we'll be surrounded by trees. There are good hardwoods back there. T and Jimmy and I put our boots on and avoided the snakes and walked back there and walked the land, and it's just it's beautiful. Behind there's a creek back there, and yeah. So yes, ma'am. Thank you for sharing. Who's next? Mr. Thacker.
Yes, my name is Joe Thacker. I live at 8268 Combs Way in Stokesdale. And I have a technical question. How many parking spaces in the town park and how many parking spaces are in the town hall?
I see where you're going, Joe, and It's been discussed. I don't know the answer to your question in terms of numbers, but yeah, I see where you're going, and, it's, I don't want to put Jimmy on the spot, but Jimmy's got a great idea, and we hope we can get it to work out to maybe address that. I think additional parking would be needed in the future. That only makes sense, right? I mean, you have, the PTA's put on several events out here in the last year, and even for those events, right, the parking we have is not ample. Soccer days on Saturday, we see it. I mean, so, very good point and acknowledged.
Let me follow up to that as well. One of the things, when we purchased the land, you know where the house sits, and there's a little, somewhat narrow strip that runs beside the house that's ours. So my thought in envisioning that strip is probably not wide enough to put any kind of ball field or anything like that, was maybe to, at some point, bring another entrance into the park right there and put a parking lot somewhere on the left, if you're facing the house, on the right side of the house, which would, going back to the basketball court, which would probably maybe be in front of the basketball court at some point. So just something I had thought about when I originally looked at that land, was on the left side of the land from here to this road, there's a lot of field space, in my opinion, open space, flat, square. So there'd be an applicable use of it on the right side because it's narrow, it's a little bit more angled, and that may be an option. And that would put a parking lot, you know, more adjacent to the fields and more adjacent to the amphitheater, and we wouldn't have to cross. The other concern is crossing over the walking path, and we don't want to do that. So we don't want to interrupt the flow of the walking path, because then people are walking across traffic. We've already got that coming into the front, and I know that can sometimes become an issue. So it is something that I've thought about as well, and you know, and I think the basketball court kind of lays that foundation or groundwork for another entrance right there coming in, and I think it would help. It also, and this is way off task, but it also may help the school somehow with their traffic issues, and maybe provide them some option for, you know, a turnaround spot or something, but just something to think about.
Yeah, I want to be careful what we do, because, you know, we bought that property and we were talking about nature trails.
That's right.
So, you know, I just want to be careful how we do it, because you're not growing any more property as far as for nature trails. We need some trees.
Yep. Kathy?
Oh, were you?
Oh, hold on one second. Hey, Mike, Mr. Crawford, Mr. Mayor, are you on the phone here?
I am here.
Good. Welcome, sir. I hope you are, hope you're going to be better soon.
Trying to, I want to commend Chief for his presentation, and I'd like to thank everyone for being there and putting their 2 cents in. This is important. This is big money, and these are big decisions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I agree. May I ask a favor?
Sure.
Could you mute your phone? We're getting some some feedback from you.
I'm terribly sorry. Forgive me.
That's okay, buddy. I'm sorry. We were with Kathy. Welcome, Kathy.
Hey there, I'm just going to piggyback on what Joe brought up. My name is Kathy Buntoff. I live at 8202 McCrory Road, Stokesdale. I just wanted to suggest that maybe what gets acted upon as a result of this is done with a plan of where future parking will be, to think that through, so that we don't need parking where we can't put it in the future. I do think, especially the amphitheater, also the basketball courts, will necessitate parking, and it seems like that's a really important thing to go ahead and have a plan for. We do need more parking than we have now, as much as I hate parking lots. The second thing I wanted to mention is lighting that might be needed with the amphitheater, also potentially with the basketball courts. I won't even do more than mention lighting around the athletic fields, but I think lighting is something that needs to be discussed with respect to the park here. And so that's just another part of this whole thing. That's all.
Thank you. And the parking lot is definitely acknowledged, you know, at least by me, the parking situation. And Robin, we are working on a solution. It's a creative solution, but it would make sense if we can get this the outcome we desire about acquiring land. And anyway.
Hi, my name is Adam Delvo, 8200 Angels Glen Court. Just a couple of quick thanks. T, great job on the presentation and for collaborating, going through the surveys, understanding and everything. The council for the special session and the opportunity for citizens to speak on behalf of these plans. I really, I like them all. You know, it'd be nice to be able to prioritize and rank and send out another survey and say, these are the 4 we're landing on, and here's, you know, watch the video and proposal and identify what you want. I want to make sure that we're cognizant of earmarking funds for future improvements. If we start talking about basketball hoops, or we're talking about, you know, repairs, are we talking about current path or erosion issues along the trails that we have existing today, are just a couple of things that are like top of mind to make sure that we have the foresight to put that within the budget and make sure that we have upkeep and maintenance on a couple of those. There was a question or within the survey about need for sidewalk or connected paths. Is that something that we feel is feasible for a long-term plan, that we'd want to have this, you know, weave through the town for any particular reason? I don't know that there's a ton of sidewalks needed outside of close proximity of the park. Bear with me just a couple. Security and just general concerns. If we're bringing in folks and we've got a lot of active participants, that's a great thing. Want to make sure that security around the park. We know that there have been some issues in Oak Ridge Town Park with break-ins and things. I know that our security cameras that we have out here aren't exactly, they're good, they're not great. But just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to keep all of our citizens who are visiting the park safe. That goes along with what Kathy was talking about with lighting as well. It could present an opportunity there. Last two, do we have any quantities, understanding of the frequency of use of amphitheater? I love it, I think it's fantastic, but do we have any statistics from surrounding towns and their usage rate, or how many people they're drawing in, or how frequently that space is being made or being utilized? And then the last question I'll ask is storage equipment for recreational equipment. It is the middle of winter, and we have soccer nets and goals that we pay money for, or that the park and rec pays money for, and they're continuously out there, damaged. Every couple of years we'll buy new ones. Just something to keep top of mind. I know that that may be a whole separate entity through the Stokesdale Park and Rec, but that I think was on the survey, or maybe it was not on the survey. But to have some sort of, how do we keep the stuff that we get clean, and that'll have a long-lasting impact. This is a phenomenal opportunity for us as a town, and I don't want it to go to waste. So I'll pause. My wife told me I talked 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
No, you're great. That was eloquently spoken. You had some questions, and I want to do my best to answer them. In terms of trails and connectivities and sidewalks, no, there's no sidewalks planned. As far as trails and the connectivity of trails, I would envision that the trails would be at a minimum, of course, connect with the elementary schools. So, I think there's synergies there that would be a positive. We're limited on the, by the land that we owned, of course. Storage equipment and the soccer goals noted. To the best of my knowledge, I think the town only owns 2 of those goals, to the best of my knowledge. And trying to think, you made great points with everything you said.
If I may, Derek, while you're thinking, let me
Yeah.
just address the soccer goals. I know that's an issue, and I know one of the biggest issues is just simply moving them, because they're big, they're cumbersome to move by yourself, or, you know, we've had an instance where somebody took the chain to one to move it and dragged it and it bent it, and we definitely don't want to get into a situation like that where we're trying to move it not safely. So, it's a bigger issue than, and yes, most of them are Parks and Rec. I would love to see, and I'm continue to talk to them about it. I'd love to see us put a utility shed of some sort. I think we're getting at the point where we need to think about having some sort of utility building down in this area. And, you know, some equipment, some basic stuff. We need to blow the thing off, maybe some hoses and stuff, some basic necessities down there to keep it clean. So that could be maybe incorporated into that thought of a building with maybe some sort of lean-tos or something that we could, you know, put the goals, maybe that, and that would certainly have to be a conversation with Parks and Rec, because it's technically their equipment. And, you know, how do you move it safely? You know, do we have to buy a piece of equipment to move it? You know, thinking about one person, or me and Derek out there, you should have seen us digging a hole for a bench out there. And then when we realized we had to carry the bench from in here all the way out the front door, all the way down there, you know, but,
Jim,
so,
you drove your car out there, be honest.
no, you wanted to put it in your car, and I said, we can't put that in the car, Derek, that's too big. So it was a long walk with the bench, but,
Got our exercise.
but I think, you know, that it's a great point, because there has been some damage to the equipment by people trying to move it inappropriately. Not really on the town's responsibility, but I know that's been brought up before. And
You know, and I hesitate to open this can of worms, but you got to acknowledge it. I mean, soccer goals, they need to be anchored down in the back, you know, at a minimum with sandbags or something. That is a huge safety concern. And anybody in the Parks and Rec program that's had any directive or coaching opportunity with soccer knows that is the first and foremost thing you do, because, I mean, kids like to jump up and hang on things, right? And I don't need to tell the rest of the story of what could happen if they're not anchored down from the back, so.
I think that probably the two things that might need some further discussion. The first would be security.
Okay.
Sorry. The first thing would be security, as to whether or not we have any plans to make sure that there's either additional lighting or surveillance cameras to make sure that we're able to catch any riffraff. I love the gate up at night, but seen people driving around them.
Oh boy, the gate. So we do have an abundance of security cameras in the park, and they have served us, they've served their purpose, and they work well. I would be insistent that there would be additional security cameras on this basketball court and amphitheater if we so move in that way.
Great.
That is important.
And then the other question was, we're talking about new things. We'd still have existing plans on upkeep on regular trails that we have today and all the maintenance. And can we utilize some of those funds for re-blacktopping the trail, for example?
So I believe in 2019, spring of 2019, I believe maybe not re-asphalt the walking trails we have, but we did reseal them. I believe that was roughly a $30,000, $40,000 expenditure. So that I don't know how frequently that needs to be done, but in my opinion, that has been done pretty recently.
Yeah, I can recall that. I think we've got a back behind the soccer area where we have the little drainage area where there is a drainage issue starting to develop just beyond the path. So just thinking about some of those things that might be coming up in the near-term future that we'd have to address.
Yep. Have you ever heard the frogs out there in that drainage area? Yeah, exactly. All right, all good comments, questions, everything. This is fantastic. Who else? Well, let's not end the fun so early. No, I mean, this has been really good, and I've heard some good things. I think the comments about parking definitely are well received and have been noted. that is a thing, so.
Could you possibly address any learnings you had with the frequency of use of amphitheaters? Sorry, maybe I should just stop talking.
No, Adam. Hold on, man.
You know, with regard to the surrounding amphitheaters, it's all planned through planning programs with individual municipalities. And certainly that would relate certainly to any kind of programs and stuff that we chose to sponsor as a town out there. And you can kind of judge that, you know, based on how you plan for it and budget for it and that kind of thing. Hard to predict where additional civic groups may want to come and use those facilities, such as the elementary school, such as the Boy Scouts.
Friends of Stokesdale.
Friends of Stokesdale, you know, there's a number of things that we would use those facilities for. You know, again, going back to what if we do a cross-country meet out there, then we would use the amphitheater to present awards and that kind of thing. With regard to the surrounding areas, those that I've participated in are the only ones that I can really speak with any real knowledge of. I know that Oak Ridge is planning, I believe, 6 concerts there this summer. Summerfield, I want to say, has either 3 or 4 concerts during the summer months at their amphitheater facility. My way of thinking too is, you know, I'll tie in a little bit with what Mr. Nadell said with regard to we want this amphitheater to be the best it can be, because we are competing with 2 others. If you do have a group that wants to use an amphitheater and it's a centrally located group that's not really tied to Oak Ridge, Stokesdale, or Summerfield, where would they approach? Where would what they want to have their event? You know, we certainly want to be the most desirable. I think ours, as proposed, has a lot of advantages over the other 2 in the area, and that's by design. So with accessibility and also proximity to the parking lot and that kind of thing. So, you know, a lot of these things would be for the future because it would take some planning, it would take some additional funding. I'll go along and tie into some other comments with regard to sponsorships. I know that some other towns in the area do have activities that are corporate sponsors, and those sponsors sign up for maybe the whole summer, and they sponsor, you know, the 3 or 4 or 5 concerts that they may have or whatever other activities that they have. I mean, you can have flea markets out there, you can have yard sales out there, you can have, it's just a matter of, number one, making it a desirable and an accessible facility, and then managing its use, because they'll come to us. You know, the Field of Dreams, build it, they will come.
Yeah, build it.
You know, or in our area, feed them, they will come. So, but I mean, great comments, but, you know, to give you any real concrete numbers, a lot of it would be calendar planning on behalf of the civic organizations or the town, and go from there. Does that make sense?
That's a great answer, T.
I'll just make one comment. I went to an event at Oak Ridge's Park. It was a 80s band, and it was absolutely packed. And it ended early, but you couldn't find a place to sit. They could have used more food, but
Could you find a place to park?
we actually, I made a parking place. That's when as my wife says, you know, I'll make a place. Just don't worry about it. So I made a place, but yeah, it was very crowded that day, and a lot of different ages. You know, there were kids in the playground. There were teenagers, you know, walking around. So again, like going to your point, it's really going to depend on. We've got to diversify what we want to invite. We can't just invite all, you know, one age group of events. So we've got to be in the mindset of our demographics, and, you know, some newer type stuff, and, you know, and it may take us a year or 2 to basically copycat, you know, who else is going to these other events, maybe get on their websites and see, and go to some of them and see what's popular, and, you know, that may be the cheapest and best way to figure out who we need to kind of be attracting to, and who's drawing the biggest crowds, and in these other towns, because I'm sure we'd be similar. But there's plenty of bands and things around that we could probably, you know, entertain all age groups, and it doesn't have to be just music, you know.
Yeah.
We could work our Christmas event into this somehow, from our tree lighting ceremony or something. I don't know, but I think the possibilities would be expanded upon as we kind of get into it and start looking around, see what everybody else is doing. So.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do dance group, recitals, you know, May days, that kind of thing. Miss Theory has another.
I see she's about to pull the mic from your hand, is what she's about to do to you.
Give it to me already. Between him and him, it's, what is our answer?
Didn't you have a show to watch?
No, but it's become like a two-way street here. Here, you take the mic, you take the mic.
Okay, meeting's over.
No, this is great. This is great.
You know what I'd like to also suggest?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever heard the Northwest High School band play?
Absolutely.
I mean, they were invited to Hawaii, and that would fill the amphitheater because figure the parents and whoever, the grandparents. So I would like to speak to somebody from the school once we're finished, because I was in awe. We saw it on Facebook, and that band was as good as anything you ever heard.
Oh, they're incredible.
So there are some things that can be happening. I know the Friends of Stokesdale, they have a pole dancer, they said, so.
My goodness.
Ooh,
My
I don't think
goodness.
that was the genre I was thinking about when I was talking.
Is it Joe? No, I mean, but you know, thinking about the park, and we're talking about these other towns, you know, what they do, our neighbors, and you know, they all do nice things and all that, and obviously, I think I think our park is nice today. I think it can be improved. I think these projects are very nice, but you know, I'd like to see, you know, I'd love to do things in the park that. We're not trying to compete with Oak Ridge or anything. That's not the way I look at it. I'd love to have something, but you know, that park means a lot to people, those people in Oak Ridge, and I'd like to have something that equally means a whole lot to people in Stokesdale, in our community, and have those events. And I think we're, you know, this is a very, it's a foundation, right? I mean, there's improvements to make to anything, but it's a start. And T, how many times has the committee met, and when did they start meeting?
Give it back to him, please.
Yeah,
We won't take it.
we've been meeting pretty much on a weekly basis since July the 28th. So we've had about 19 meetings. Of course, we took some hiatus over the holidays, but it's been an open meeting every time. So certainly we can entertain additional guests on a go-forward basis. Anyone's welcome to attend those. It's on Thursday afternoons at 5:15 here in the town council. But so far, we've had 19 meetings and then numerous phone calls, and you and I have
Field
taken
trips?
numerous field trips.
Yeah.
Mr. Thacker has a
Oh, right.
comment.
Mr. Thacker.
No, I'm not taking it.
Just another reminder, I don't think anybody mentioned here tonight about the activities going on north of the county line in Rockingham County. With all the development going on up there, you got a lot of people moving in up there, and I think you can draw a lot of people from Rockingham County down here to this park if you're interested in it.
I know better than to give it to Molly.
Derek, I just wanted to say that I appreciate your comments about supporting the park and wanting it to be something that people here in Stokesdale really appreciate and value, because that has not always been the opinion of our town council. We've been told in the past that if we wanted a nice park, we could go to Oak Ridge or to Summerfield. So I'm glad to hear you say what you said.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else? Mark, only one question, really? All right. Well, you know, with that, I guess let's find the agenda here. Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, welcome back.
First, let me apologize for not being there, but I can assure you, none of you want to have whatever it is I've had for the last nearly a week. I don't know that I'm COVID positive, but it's not been a lot of fun, and I do apologize. But I can tell you, we've had a very, very good meeting tonight. I want to thank everyone for all of their comments. Everything is positive. thank you, Derek, for leading this, and all of the council members for your contributions.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, or any other council members of that, we've got a lot of great feedback, input, questions from citizens, but, we do have, the council members here, and, I think council members, if they have any questions, should go ahead and ask those as well. And, again, we're at the beginning stages of this, so, anything of this magnitude, especially for a town of our size, would, it's a big thing, so, none of us have a ton of experience in building things, but putting our minds together, I think we can land at good decisions and good outcomes, for the citizens of our town. Jimmy, you got anything, buddy?
Well, I sit on the committee, so I pretty much know what's going on.
Yeah.
I do appreciate everybody being here. We had a lot of meetings. We're glad to have input now. And it's, like I said, nothing we got here is wrote in stone. So, we may be able to take some of the recommendations and tweak it some. My vision is that I'm concerned about the citizens of Stokesdale, the people that live here, and having a nice place. The amphitheater is kind of down the line on it, but, I remember when Stokesdale School had a stage, and they used to have plays and things, and, is the Odyssey of the Mind still going?
I don't know.
I remember the Odyssey of Mind was big around here, and things like that. You could host those type of events, school plays. You got several private schools around that, could come in and do plays and things. And they say, the amphitheater would be a great addition. Basketball court. We used to have I growed up here, and we had a basketball court. And I know there's, they say negative things. There was a lot of negative things when I was at the basketball court. But I can tell you something. I'd get so tired from playing, I'd go home, and that night I didn't get in no trouble. So, that's something I wanted to see. I actually had one friend I was weighing it back and forth. People would say, "Oh, you don't want to do that," and some say you do. And he told me, and he said, "We need a basketball court," and he passed away. And before he's not going to get to see it. I wish he could see it. And I hope we get it built. It's a good addition. Of course, playground equipment is, I don't know if you can have enough playground equipment. Sometimes there's nobody playing in it for long periods of times, but then next thing you know, you look there and there's kids everywhere and not enough. So it's just a growing process, and there'll be other things. There's gonna be maintenance to do. You got to consider those things. We're trying to do the build materials to where there won't be a lot of maintenance, hopefully, other than blowing things off and things. And, we're looking at all that. And believe me, we are weighing it. And it just, when I see that price, I thought, oh my God, I just can't, we started out, I don't know, 150 or somewhere around there, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. But, we've got the funds. If we don't spend them, we've got to give them back. I'm as conservative as they come as far as money like that, and it's just I think we got a good plan. Could we do something different? Yeah, we could do. There's other things we could do. We're trying to reach out to the most citizens that we can, and feel like the park's a place that we can do that. So, but again, thank you for all you coming. We'll probably have some more meetings, and you're all welcome to come. We want input. It doesn't matter if we agree, disagree. We'll all do it and be happy about it, and move these projects on down the road, hopefully. Thank you.
Any further discussion, questions, comments?
I'd just like to point out that, just like Jimmy said, we have the money, we have to spend it, and I just want to echo what the rest of the council believes in, is that none of this money is coming from tax dollars, and none of it's coming from our citizens' pockets, more or less. And I think it's a benefit either way we go, that we move forward with this, and we're very fortunate as a town to be able to be in this position to build something basically for free. you know, and I don't think we should, you know, overlook that. You know, we want to make the best decisions, but at the end of the day, we're going to come out ahead regardless of what decision we make.
Right. Right, Dan. You know, all monies the town receives is tax dollars. It's certainly no property tax dollars.
Right.
You know, that's, but we've already paid for this, and, you know, with the inflation that you're seeing, you're paying for it every day, and, you know, that's, it's time to see a return on your investment, or what you've already paid for, so.
Mr. Ford,
Yes, sir, Tim?
I've tried to be quiet and be sure I listen more than I talk. I've made a laundry list of questions that I think are better for me to put in an email and send to the committee, send to the council members that are on that committee.
Sure.
It's mostly just organizational, business questions, insurance questions, you know, kind of a next step.
Absolutely.
That I'd like to send out for a reminder. You know, I think it's more important to hear our citizens. You know, they've taken our time out to come to our meeting, and I have access to council, you know, most any day, one way or the other, between email and phone calls. But the one thing I was going to mention, just so that I get it off my chest, I would like for us to at least briefly I know time is short, but at least briefly consider the possibility of constructing a facility that would incorporate the basketball court and the amphitheater under one roof. My vision would be, instead of the Green Pond amphitheater, the Green Pond barn that would, you know, have both of those in there. I would probably be more insistent on this if we weren't kind of what I feel short on time. But I just want to let the citizens know I've put that out there with council members and committee members, and hadn't got a lot of nibbles. It's just my own idea. I think of the term of a facility that would have a roof and maybe partially closed in on the sides. That would be a 3-season basketball court instead of a 4-season. You know, with no. I think it would blow our budget if we had to put HVAC into a conventional gym building and bathrooms and all that sort of thing. But it's just something that I've been batting around in my head. I'll mention it, just maybe there's an expert somewhere out in this audience or listening to me somewhere that can help us pursue that. But I thought it worth mentioning anyway, and the rest of my comments and what have you are just mostly about, I will not go into the town's reserves to support these projects. So that kind of leads me to be the one to ask for contingencies to be built into each project's budget when the time comes. And I don't know whether that contingency should be 10% or 12% or 23%, but there needs to be something set aside there. There's always surprises, and the town is not able to effectively function like a private business and make changes quickly. Just it's a little bit more cumbersome than that. You know, we have to meet all the guidelines the state has and take into account everything our citizens want. And I think we'll get there. And it's a big project for our small staff. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tim. And if I'm not mistaken, the estimate we received for the amphitheater from the general contract included a line item for contingencies. But you know, with anything, of course, that's you know, very important, and your point's well taken. And I certainly welcome your feedback. You know, one of your strengths is you know, you think of things outside the box and have different life experiences than, you know, a lot of us don't. And your attention to detail and all that is, you know, you're fantastic at that. So would welcome, you know, any feedback that you have, and I'm sure all committee members and council members and staff would as well. All right. With that, what's on the agenda that we have citizens' comments again. If anybody has anything to say, please do so. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the meeting with council comments.
Just like to thank everybody for coming out. I think we've
talked about everything we need to talk about for this meeting, so I appreciate everybody coming out and definitely take these ideas and work on them a little bit and.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this means so much. You know, I'm obviously very excited about this opportunity and these potential projects, and I'm so grateful that, you know, you guys took time out of your night and showed up, and we're here, and I really appreciate that. You know, last thing, I'm sure everybody here saw what happened, I guess it was Monday night with the accident on Monday Night Football with DeMar Hamlin, and I'm really, really hopeful that we're gonna see a feel-good story out of this. Everybody needs a good feel-good story. And I read today that, you know, he is now responsive in riding in the hospital, and I think that's just awesome. I mean, this is you know, anybody that follows sports, but also I think this has captivated anybody that doesn't even follow sports. This has been amazing. But I was, you know, I guess the word I'll use is moved when I saw that, you know, he was communicating after what happened Monday night in that game, communicating with his folks. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you all. Mr. Jimmy.
Yeah, well, I pretty much said everything in my other comments, but I do appreciate everybody coming. It does give us the opportunity to hear what you like and weigh it. And I do weigh stuff a lot. And you ask my wife, I lose a lot of sleep thinking about things up here. And I'm never, I hate to say it, I might be a little wishy-washy sometimes because I'll think this, I'll talk about this, and then I'll move over this way. And in a way, it's kind of like it's somebody on each shoulder. But I do appreciate it because we do care what people think and what they want, because ultimately this money did come out of taxpayers' pockets, and we're trying to spend it the best way we can. Of course, we're not going to make everybody happy. There's no way to do that, and I wish there were some way to do it, but it's not. So we're going to do the best we can and take everything into consideration. But thank everybody for being here.
And I'll thank everybody. I think I counted 16 heads when we started our meeting, so that's a healthy little crowd for our town hall. I'd like to wish our mayor a speedy recovery, whatever's befallen him. You know, mainly because I don't want him to get out of any work. We need him down here. He's the one that has to sign a lot of papers that the rest of us don't have to deal with from time to time, and do a little extra work. And, you know, these two down here, the next time they start working, I wish maybe a citizen out there would follow them around and perhaps take a few photographs for the proof. But
You can go sit on the proof. It's dried.
Okay, well, somehow I missed that. When
It
y'all
was a
did that,
sight,
so
I'm sure.
Yeah. The site was right after we leveled the concrete and poured it, Derek was getting ready to sit on it. And I said, Derek, you can't do that.
Hey,
Well, I commend them, but if anybody that knows me, the one thing I hate doing is digging fence post holes. That just, by hand, that just drives me crazy. It's just so slow and strenuous. But anyway, if they did complete that chore, then I will extend a thank you to them.
somehow Jim got the hole that didn't hit rock, but my hole, I was hitting rock the minute I put the shovel in the ground, so. But it worked out. We got a nice new bench out there, so.
Let me, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank Mr. Jones for his condolences, and hopefully I can recover pretty quickly. And I do apologize for not being there, but you guys have had a great meeting.
Thanks, Mike. We missed you. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Jim?
Aye.
I'm also aye.
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 All right, folks, thank y'all so much. I appreciate you being here.